Hi, this is Leah. We are in the Rolling Stones studio today talking all things Olivia Rodrigo's third studio album, You Seem Pretty Sad for a Girl So in Love. Joining me today is senior writer Angie Martoccio.
Hello.
And deputy music editor Julyssa Lopez.
Hi.
So we've all had a little bit of time to listen to this album, digest it a little bit. What are your first impressions, or what were your first impressions when you listened?
I think I was really excited about this album. And I think at first it took me a minute to get into it, but I think the things that took me a bit longer are actually a lot of the album strengths. I think, first of all, this is a much more experimental sound for Olivia. I think she's testing out different sounds. The album is very inspired by The Cure. There's a lot of new wave influences, which is a little different to what she's done in the past on Sour and Guts. And then I think the other thing is that you really have to kind of listen to this album and think of it as a complete narrative. So many of her past albums feel like these collages of her experiences, and this is really a story from beginning, middle to end. She's telling, the story of a relationship. And I think that to me, between kind of the lyricism, the production, and also the sequencing on the album, I think makes it really feel like an evolution in her storytelling.
So for me, it's like Olivia's had quite a presence, right? She was dominating the festival circuit last year. We've seen her out on stage. She's been doing a couple things here and there. She hasn't released an album in like 4 years.
Right.
So it's just, even when Drop Dead, the first single came out, I just kept listening to it over and over in disbelief that she's actually back with new music. So for me, it was like kind of like a shock of like, oh my God, I have to process. It's a lot to process, first of all, with any new record. But it's also just that she has a full album of new music. As such a fan of hers, it was a really big surprise, and I'm just like still kind of soaking it up.
Do you have any standout tracks that really kind of popped out at you during your first listen or two?
My favorite one from the beginning, and even still now after listening to
Purple.
it many times, is Purple.
You're
very on brand with
Purple.
Yeah.
No, I do really love Purple. I think that's such a great song, and it kind of changes every time I listen to it, and I'm still kind of trying to, I was telling you earlier, like I'm really still trying to understand it. I think on its own, it is kind of this, it's kind of wrapped in these sort of sad synths, even though like the song itself is, in the beginning, all of these glimpses at a relationship and all these moments of two lives kind of coming together and a relationship becoming really serious. But what I love about it is that there is almost like a mini arc and a narrative even within that song, where you kind of see throughout the album, but I think especially on that song, all of these insecurities and anxieties about her relationship start leaking through. And I think that's really a moment where, if you look at the lyrics, she's really starting to lose herself a little bit, and you get the sadness of maybe realizing that this relationship you were so happy about isn't maybe what you thought it was. And I just think it's a great song.
It can be a little easier to write a full-on I'm so in love song, I'm so devastated song.
Yeah.
It's really hard to capture that complexity of being like, I don't really know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
And I don't even know who I am anymore. We've been together. Our toothbrushes are together. She talks about the duality of like, or not duality. She talks about having two of everything when you like are really basically living with somebody.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're like, is this what I want? And you're like secretly questioning that and not even confronting that question. And I think that's what Purple is about. It's like, holy shit, what's actually happening here? And there's just so many layers to it to dig into. And that's why I think when I talked to you about it at first, I was like, yeah, it's fine. And then I listened back to it, I'm like, oh, there's so much here.
Yeah.
Totally.
And that's what I love about this record in general. I feel like you can't listen to it once and be like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
There's going to be months of me having new takes and like we should just do this again in a few months because I'll have definitely new opinions. But she's very much like anything but surface level. There's so much more for her. And this is like the richest her songwriting has been, in my opinion, at least, that like she's just going really far in there now.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I also feel that way, where you can see that evolution in her songwriting on Less, which
Totally.
we were talking about.
Devastating song.
Yeah, and I think Less is like probably maybe like a more straightforward, sad ballad.
Right.
But at the same time, I think there's even so much complexity in that song, because it's not just a we broke up and it sucks, but it's really like about kind of loving somebody but still knowing that you have to let them go. And I kept thinking about sort of just how that one in particular made me think about, you know, Olivia having her big breakthrough at 16 with Driver's License, and that being a song so much about teenage heartbreak. And I think for me, Less kind of represents just how far she's come in terms of like capturing those, you know, these bigger emotions. That she's called this, you know, the relationship that the album is about, she's called her like first adult relationship. Right. And I think it's just such a mature take on what kind of a breakup in adulthood feels like.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of sort of like the purple sentiment of being confused and not feeling any which way about a relationship yet, I think that really shows on the song she has, What's Wrong With Me, with Robert Smith. That's like going to the doctor and being told you're fine, but feeling so weird. I want to hear your thoughts about that collaboration.
I mean, first of all, with the doctor line, I have to say that it's very like almost Phoebe Bridgers-like. That she's like, the doctor put her hand over my liver. I was like, there's a lot of doctors in pop music right now.
Yeah.
That collaboration, it's noteworthy to say, Olivia doesn't collaborate a lot with people. This was her first ever time doing this. And she happened to do it with someone who also does not do this a lot. Robert Smith of The Cure is a very shy. He's just like the kind of dude who has always acknowledged people who like him. He's always been nice about that. He doesn't do public cosigns a lot like this. And having them two together on stage, which she debuted the song at Primavera recently, and that was just incredible. And you can really see the Easter egg she put into it. If you think about Glastonbury last year when they first performed together, she was literally wearing a tank top that said, "You know all the words to Just Like Heaven." And it was like her kind of hinting at her new era.
Yeah.
And I think like there's something about this song for me that I keep going back to. She's been spending a lot of time in London while making this album. And Drop Dead starts where she's literally talking about, you know all the words to Just Like Heaven, referencing The Cure. Throughout the album, she's getting more and more into like this goth rock phase. And then you have the actual goth rock god himself, Robert Smith, on a song with her. It was a very like full circle coming together moment. And I have listened to that song so many times. I think their voices complement each other so well. They clearly get along. They were taking shots together backstage at Glastonbury. Wish I was there for that. And yeah, I think it's just like an incredible... It's that kind of thing where you have a lot of artists that collaborate a lot. And when she does it, you can tell she means it. Totally. It's very intentional, and he's the same way.
How do you feel about the Cure references throughout the album?
Yeah, I think that's one of the strengths of the album. I think Olivia's been somebody who, she always kind of shows her references, right? On Sour and Guts, you know, she's talked about being influenced by, you know, the Riot Girl era rock. She's talked about being influenced by Alanis Morissette. And you get those influences across her music. And I think, like Angie said, what I love about the album is that, like, it feels so immersive in that there are these nods and these little Easter eggs and references to The Cure and what she's trying to do. But then by bringing Robert Smith in, I think it actually shows so much of what she and her producer, Dan Nigro, they aren't just like nodding to The Cure in that era, but actually creating kind of this immersive sonic world where he actually fits into it. Like, it isn't just
I love that part in your review.
Oh, thanks, man.
It's a great line in your review.
Like, it works so well, and it doesn't feel like awkward ever. Both of them, I think, are really... The song makes sense for both of them.
When I saw that there was a track called You Plus Me Equals Heart, you being the letter and heart being the little... I wasn't sure what to expect. I thought it might be like a little juvenile sounding, but it is quite the opposite, in my opinion. Very The Cure inspired, as you guys have mentioned.
I mean, sonically, it is very much The Cure. It's the most Cure she's going to get. I also fully dropped my phone listening to the song because she talks about yacht rock, one of my favorite micro genres. And that kind of shows like how big this genre has come along. It wasn't even really a name until like 2020. At least back like pre-pandemic era. This is something from the 70s that like is now huge, and talk about like the Doobie Brothers and like Kenny Loggins, and the fact that she's singing about it is absolutely crazy. I fully dropped my phone on the ground and was like, hang on, rewound it. And aside from that, it's just like packed with such great lyrics. trying to impress your boyfriend's sister, always hard to do. It's such a great one for me. It's definitely a highlight.
You had referenced her party era on Guts, and I think that she actually kind of calls back to it during a song called Expectations on this album, which I love. I think it feels a little bit like a sister song to Get Him Back. I love the line about not dating a guy with a fake job. I think that should be advice every woman should take.
I don't want to call you out, but I did think of you at sometimes.
Yeah, been there, done that.
It's like going to a bar with a vodka crayon. I guess like she basically goes to a bar in Silver Lake and is like, my future husband's clearly not here.
Yeah.
It sonically is so Devo. It sounds like their 1980 single Girl You Want. And it's like you can listen to that alone and be like, this is a great song. But again, the way she talks about such kind of like bummer elements to such like a hypnotic new wave synth sound is such a great combination for me. And it really hits me where I love it.
That one to me is like Devo and the B-52s had a baby, and
Yes.
the baby was born in 2026 on this album. But I also love where that fits in the story, because right before, is it less? It's before
I think
that?
right before,
So
yeah.
you get like almost like that like sad, heartbroken, like she's so upset, to then like her out and kind of trying to figure things out again. So I love just like that arc, because it's not just like then the breakup happens and then this is all going to be downhill and a spiral and a bummer for the rest of the album. Like you still get, I think it's so smart to kind of inflect it with these moments of things that are more upbeat and things that sonically are more exciting versus just like sad balladry for
Definitely
taking you out of the album.
Yeah, I mean, this is the geekiest thing, but I do love asking artists how they sequence tracks. The track listing for some people, you know, you can ask one artist and they're like, I don't know, I just put them together. And then you ask somebody like Olivia and she's like, let me tell you about, she usually has, she has this visually, there'll be like a whiteboard in their studio and they like literally plan it out and how these tracks should flow. And aside from it being an arc, as Julyssa said, it's obviously a narrative, but to have like a song drop dead go into stupid song is a beautiful process, like the seamless transition. And I agree with you, like going less into Expectations is so wild, but it fits so well.
Yeah.
And again, it's like that complexity of her relationship, and you can kind of see it's messy. It's not supposed to be this clean, seamless transition, but she makes it that.
That being said, I want to know what songs maybe you had some questions about, were confusing to you, or just didn't really sit with you well the first time, or still to this day.
Yeah.
I already feel defensive here because I know what you're going to say.
Me and Angie are going to
Just
fight.
Go ahead. It's fine. It's fine. Just go. Like it's like early in the morning, but I'll do it.
The thing is, Angie kind of just explained why this wasn't my favorite, because I do love. I do think the transition from Drop Dead to Stupid Song is so great. And Drop Dead, you know, it's such like the rush of having a crush and liking somebody and the anticipation of being with them at a bar. Then you have Stupid Song, and there's almost this fake out where you think it's going to be a ballad and then it really picks up. And so there's this energy that's happening between the first two tracks. And then for me, Honeybee just kind of drops it. And it is a sleepier song. I tend to like more of sort of the aggressive or upbeat Olivia. And I understand why, you know, you kind of need that sort of love ballad in an album where you're tracing a relationship. But it was not my favorite.
Yeah, and she has plenty of ballads, I feel like, on this album, or like a good amount to round it out. So it feels like there might be like an overstuffed vibe with Honeybee on as number 3.
I can tell you where there's overstuffing, and it's not Honeybee. I feel like I saw the title of the song, and I was like, I'm gonna hate this. It sounds cheesy. I don't like pet names in general. It just sounded kind of like corny. It's a beautiful song. It's not just falling in love and it being... Track 3s are really hard to do.
Yeah.
You have this build-up, as you said, like 1 and 2, very important. 3 is where like you kind of like stay or leave the album if you're not interested. And it's really hard to keep listeners hooked. And I feel like she does it, and it really sneaks up on you. You also were like, I'm not feeling this song. And I was like, okay. And I pressed play, and I was like, yeah, she's kind of right. And then I was like, let me hear that again. And I heard it like 10 times. And it's so gothy piano, almost like Vampire. And I felt the same way about Vampire for Guts when that first came out. It was the first inkling of that album. And I was like, all right, this is fine. And then I became obsessed with it. She really does these sleeper songs, and also, let's be real, like I love sad shit, and Honeybee is very sad despite being a love song, which is the title of the album, right? She's in love, but it still sounds like she's bummed out, and that's kind of like her magical duality.
Yeah.
I will say I do love. Is it on Cigarette Smoke where she calls him Honeybee again, and it's like a callback? I did think that was really, again, and I think that's so much of the album. She's linking these ideas and these things that make it feel so cohesive.
It's a really nice bookend.
Yeah.
And I feel like you kind of politely skipped over a stupid song, but I know you're not feeling that one.
It doesn't do much for me.
You don't like the blunts mention?
I don't like blunts.
I mean, like, yeah, obviously.
But like I respect it. I also just feel like it sounds a little bit vocal exercisey to me. She does a lot of this like kind of ascending scale stuff in songs, and it appears a lot on this album that feels a little repetitive. But I think it would have not felt repetitive if Stupid Song didn't have that.
I think it's just so, it's like a really good entry point for me. I agree that the second half is a little repetitive, and she does her talk singing there a lot. But it rules.
One thing I like about this album is, again, I think the idea, you know, when you get the title and you think it's going to be Olivia in her sort of lovey-dovey era, one thing I think she did so well is just capturing those nuances of how even when you're in love, you can feel crazy. And that, to me, My Way is sort of the more obvious ones. The songs that I like are the ones that are more unexpected, when she hits on something that feels really real in a relationship, like in Maggots for Brains, when you're like happy and with somebody, but you're still kind of like losing your mind if they're not there, and sort of that. She gets at like attachment and anxiety, and I think she probably hits the nuances better on other songs than on that one.
I think she really beat any kind of allegations or doubts that she can only write breakup songs.
Definitely.
She has this, you know, Sour came out, and it wasn't just Driver's License. It was Traitor. It was Deja Vu. It was an entire breakup record. And even, you know, she told me, she was like, I kind of try to have it not be called a breakup album. It is. And even she like kind of admitted that. And I think Guts had a lot of push and pull of Teenage Dream is a great song about her image and her insecurity, but for the most part it was a lot of breakup songs. And I think here she kind of proved that like she can be in love and have absolute bangers, and she's good at it. And I love that she beat any kind of sad girl allegations here, because yes, she can technically be sad as the title of the album, but she can have a great time doing it. And that's what I love about her.
She's just so good at like getting a good hook too. There's so many good hooks on this album.
I mean, that's also speaks to like her and Dan Nigro. I think they've been working together for so long, and some people kind of, when artists work with producers for a long time, you can have them get wary of that dynamic or saying they need to move on and explore different changes. But I think their specific dynamic is so great, and you can tell how well they work together. And I think that it really kind of climaxes here. You see how great it is.
What shocked you about this album? Maybe not in like a huge way, but what was surprising to you as you were listening?
I was really surprised when she performed a secret show and then subsequently performed an SNL with Wise Blood, who's an indie artist that you and I both love, and she collaborated with her on backing vocals. She sings on it. Natalie's there on stage on SNL. And it was huge news for me. She's one of my favorite artists ever. I've talked to her so much. She's just like a really underrated songwriter, I feel. And this past year has been kind of great for her. She worked on the Marty Supreme soundtrack. She's kind of had this like mainstream inkling coming in, and her singing on an Olivia song is gigantic. But when we got the album and I saw the credits, she's actually not on Begged. She just sang on it on the live version on SNL. And I can't say it like it's like I'm mad about it, but I
sound mad.
I was just kind of like bummed out. I was so excited to have, her name is Natalie marrying, and like having Natalie and Olivia together on stage in SNL was so fucking cool. And
it's a moment.
She does have some great appearances. Obviously, songwriter Amy Allen is on this record. I love her. She's like every songwriter's secret weapon, basically. But I think Natalie could have been on it, and it would have been great.
Would I be remiss to say that you're begging for more Natalie?
Yeah, I am.
What about you, Julyssa? You wrote in your review a lot about, sorry, I forgot what you wrote, but
Girl.
I loved the review. I was gonna bring up Less again, but we already talked about Less. So.
We can talk about the last song, maybe.
Okay, Cigarette Smoke.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Wait, do you want to ask? It wasn't, again, in an album that is a full story, and I think I like this. It wasn't a super neat resolution.
Totally.
She's still really in her feelings by the end of that song, and she's resentful and she's sad. And I thought, like, the obvious choice obviously would be like, as you know, a song about how she's healing and like everything is better, but like there's still so much emotion tied to that one where it makes it feel a little bit unresolved, I think, in a lot of ways. And it's a sad ending. Like it's a sad way to close out the record.
I also want to point out that she clearly had a high profile relationship that ended, and there's a lot of online discourse that she was going to rewrite her album, and then she released Drop Dead. And I think it kind of shows that, like, she was never going to do that. She doesn't care about what people think. She dropped a really happy song about the beginning of an ended relationship. And it just kind of, like, proved to me that, like, she kind of does what she wants. And ending on a song like that, not rewriting her album, she kind of, like, showed us all that, like, she doesn't go by anyone's rules.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, too, like, I think you get, again, she is pretty private, I think, and I'd want to hear more from your time on the cover story and kind of how you experienced her talking about her personal life. But I think especially with that relationship, it was pretty private, and I think this album is really sort of the only glimpse that we get at it, and the only time she's really gone, you know, like it's really just in her music. She's not like talking about it in interviews or on Instagram Live or anything. Like this is kind of the only time that we get to see and kind of maybe piece together what happened.
Yeah, Angie, you spoke with Olivia for the Rolling Stone cover in 2023. I am curious how your time with her and the things she shared with you and what you observed about her may have informed your listening of this new album, and if there were any connections that you kind of made between that conversation and what she has been releasing and talking about in her songs here.
Yeah, I mean, this is almost a cliche at this point when I say this, but it is truly that she likes to let the songs speak for themselves. She's not going to be someone who's like, let me tell you about my personal life. She's incredibly media trained. She's been doing interviews for most of her life. But that being said, at the same time, she's one of the realest people I've ever talked to. She's somebody who took me in her car. She's like, you want to go get tacos? And there was none of her team around, just she and I driving around. We did the same thing at a restaurant. We got ice cream. We walked around publicly as people were like calling her name, and she didn't care. She's so used to it, but at the same time, she's such a real person. She's one of my favorite people I've ever talked to for that reason. And yeah, like it kind of informed my listening a little bit, where I know her process.
She parallel parked for you.
She parallel parked. She's really funny. She's bubbly. She's hilarious. We were taking photos of each other on our phones. So let me take a photo of you. You look so cute here. Like she's really, she acts like you've known her your whole life.
Yeah, she seems like a real
and
person.
you can't fake that.
I find it slightly reductive to kind of box artists into eras. But I want to know what you guys kind of hope to see from Olivia next, even within this cycle, or beyond. Like, what would your hopes be from her as an artist?
I would love maybe another collaboration because she's so good at them. I think she was really great when she did the live covers with Noah Kahan, or Noah Khan, and she's really fantastic with like younger artists in particular, and I'd love to see more of that. Her and Phoebe Bridgers together would be incredible.
Ooh.
I don't think I'd survive that.
You would not survive that. She and Phoebe met a few years ago and took a photo together that went absolutely viral. Their fan bases want to see them together. They both are incredibly gifted and introspective and hyper detailed in the lyricism department. And they also really get along. They're both like California songwriters, and you know, Phoebe does incredible backing vocals when she's done them. She's done a lot of collaborations, but there's something about them together that would be just explosive, not just for you and I and our mental health.
Yeah, not just for the weird girls, but I think their voices would sound like they both have like lower registers.
Yeah.
Love a deep voice woman.
Hello, Leah.
So is this a concept album?
I'm on the fence, but I think I would say not quite. I think for me, I think of concept albums. The first one that comes to mind is Rosalia's Enmarquered, where it's this this story that she's really immersing herself in, and it's so tied to this fantasy, with everything from the visuals and the videos. To me, this album is kind of a almost like a diary of what happened to her during this period, but still not quite a full concept album.
I think concept albums were very popular decades ago, and it's now become this like loose, ambiguous term, and people kind of have lost sight of what it actually is.
Yeah.
You can think about famous albums: Green Day's American Idiot, Radiohead's Kid A, Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Like they're the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Hard to say that.
You got it.
Anyway, there's so many iconic records that are not just a narrative or being diaristic. They tell a complete full story. And I think most people nowadays are like, oh yeah, there's some love songs, concept album.
Right. There's a theme.
Yeah, there's a theme.
Right. I think that's the difference, right? There's like a difference
themes.
between a theme and a full
World building.
Yes.
Yeah, you can have themes, you can have concepts, but like I don't think that makes it technically a concept album.
I agree.
And I also think that's kind of belittling to it. I
Yeah.
think she really spent a lot of time organizing these songs, making sure that they have a through line. And I think just calling it a concept album because you see similarities with like one relationship is kind of unfair.
Right.
And I think it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, concept albums. Learn about it.
Okay, so final thoughts on You Seem Pretty Sad for a Girl So in Love. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you guys kind of want to mention?
I think I'm just really impressed with her. Like, I'm really impressed with this album. I think it's really refined. I think it's a really tight, cohesive record, even if maybe I didn't love every single song. I think what is more interesting to me is just how tightly she pulled together this story, both in terms of the lyricism and the production and in creating a very, very different sonic world than we're used to from her.
Yeah.
Like I said, she's been in the public eye, but not with new music. This is like gonna take me a long time to digest. I want the vinyl, I want the merch, I want the tour.
Oh, I can't wait for
I want
the
to see
merch.
everything. I'm all about it.
What do we think the merch is going to look like?
I don't know. I already pre-ordered one of the pink vinyl records, but then she has a different one. So there's so many shades of pink to. I don't know. I'm overwhelmed.
We're done with purple.
Julyssa, Angie, thank you for joining me. You can read Julyssa Lopez's full review of You Seem Pretty Sad for a Girl So in Love on rollingstone.com now. We'll see you next time in the Rolling Stone studio.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.